Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where at the box office, blondes definitely had more fun. Snarky intellectuals, though, not so much. Yes, Ellen DeGeneres just kept swimming, while it looks like Blake Lively might have finally had her big break when it comes to transitioning to feature films. But Independence Day itself crashed and burned, the sequel did, while Nicholas Winding Refn discovered that you're not even indie famous forever, and that's something you have to cultivate as well. Let's dive into the top 10, an appropriate thing to say because our number one movie is ocean-themed, and that's Finding Dory, which was able to hold on to the top spot for lack of competition. But even without a strong competitor, Finding Dory is doing extremely well, breaking yet another record. Again, from Shrek. DreamWorks, you gotta get back in the game. But anyway, Finding Dory now has not only the biggest opening ever for an animated movie, but also the biggest second weekend. It fell just about 45%, and it pulled in approximately 73 million. It's up to 398 million worldwide as it tries to get to a billion. We'll see if it can do that. It actually has a ways to go when you think about it, and Secret Life of Pets is fast approaching. I was trying to think about how the animation studios kind of, divide up in terms of how we think about studios with comic book movies, right? Like, I think that Pixar is definitely the Marvel of animation, right? Like, everyone goes, and usually everyone loves whatever they serve, right? I would say that Disney animation, they're maybe the Universal. They're kind of all over the place. They don't have the same kind of franchises yet. Somebody said, they're never going to make another Zootopia because they don't make sequels over at Disney Animation. Well, they're making a Frozen 2, and I bet they make a Zootopia 2, especially as they take so many cues from Pixar. That's something that John Lasseter has even admitted. He said, to try and fix Disney Animation, I implemented a lot of what we do over at Pixar. And I think he did too good of a job fixing it, because as we talked about last week, it's Disney Animation that has $2 billion films, and Pixar so far, just the one. But anyway, I think that Disney Animation is Universal because they still make a lot of money, and Universal's also a late bloomer as well, just getting into the $1 billion club pretty much last year. And then I decided who would be Warner Brothers, right? And I picked Illumination Entertainment because everyone likes to make fun of the Minions movies, even though they make so much money. They're like, why would anyone pay to see the Minions? And yet, people do. So that's just wonderful news for Ellen DeGeneres, really the only star in that film, a lot of TV voices in addition, so it really does rest entirely on her. Although, I think, honestly, they haven't done much to, credit it to her. It really does seem like solely a Pixar win. They even had a really low, a low prestige premiere, which not a lot of people paid attention to. It's weird. Sometimes Disney does huge premieres. They're like a big deal, and sometimes they have really small, quiet ones. Even like the Maleficent ones seem very small. But anyway, Finding Dory might be small in terms of scope of its premiere, but it's not small at the box office. All right, so that's the number one movie. Now, Independence Day Resurgence came in second place with 41.6. As I said in my notes, this time the movie itself blew up. And that's even less than the movie earned in 1996, the first one, when it brought in 50 million. Now, it had no stars. Will Smith said he didn't want to return. And he, of course, has Suicide Squad, which I think obviously was a better choice. But they had Jeff Goldblum come back, and he was heavily featured in the advertisements. And the fact that this movie, well, I think there are other reasons it didn't perform, but still, I think this is not a good argument for bringing Jeff Goldblum back for maybe a future Jurassic movie, even though many of us would like to see. I rewatched the movie a couple of weeks ago. It really holds up, Jurassic World, and someone's reading a book by Jeff Goldblum's character, Ian Malcolm, from the first movie. He was actually in the first two. So I thought that was a really nice thing, and it made me feel that maybe they would bring him back, but I don't know if they would after this. Also, he's doing those commercials now, although it never hurt Samuel L. Jackson's career. But anyway, toxic word of mouth. I wasn't able to review it because the press screening was day of release and I was traveling for VidCon. And that showed a real lack of faith from the studio. Like, basically they were like, we know we have a giant flaming turd on our hands. And the public ran with that. And also I saw people who I went to see it saying, I saw tweets like, I would rather sit through Transformers multiple times than watch Independence Day. I have to say, haters are pretty poetic sometimes, much to the chagrin of the studios. Because, you make people chuckle when they see that, and then also it paints how they see the picture, and they probably maybe don't even go. And I'm sure many people decided to skip Independence Day Resurgence once that toxic word of mouth began to spread. But it didn't keep Roland Emmerich from signing a new deal, which I thought was absolutely amazing. Roland Emmerich, Universal, we were just talking about Universal, they were like, we don't care. We're going to make Moonfall with Roland Emmerich, where the moon comes hurtling towards the Earth. And you always hear those stories about if the if the moon were to fall out of orbit, it would mess up the oceans and all this crazy stuff, our gravity and all that jazz. And of course, that's Roland Emmerich's specialty. Although I have to say, I loved his 2012. I thought that was a great movie. The other thing that's really unfortunate about Independence Day Resurgence, and a missed opportunity considering what happened in Orlando, tragically, and it was the Gay Pride Parade in New York over the weekend, he made a big deal about having a gay character in the film. Now, I haven't seen it because I was traveling, and the press screening was, the day of release, couldn't do it. I was in Anaheim. They were supposed to have a gay character who just happened to be gay, and he wasn't there as a token. And perhaps, so if anyone who's seen it, did they go through with that? And if they had, I wish they had done so in a more meaningful way that maybe could have drummed up a little bit of some support for the movie, right? Like, not that, just kind of like the way Star Wars did with The Force Awakens, how everyone paid attention to John Boyega, and also, to some extent, Oscar Isaac's Poe Dameron and Daisy Ridley's female lead. It would be nice for some movie in the near future to have a blockbuster type film, to have maybe if Dumbledore shows up in the Fantastic Beasts films, but to have a gay character who is not his story isn't about him being gay. It's a story that happens to a gay character. That would be great to see, and I think Independence Day Resurgence missed that opportunity, which is weird because Roland Emmerich was pioneering for it so strongly. Although, of course, he is infamous for being involved in those parties with Bryan Singer, so maybe he didn't want to bring all that up. All right, so anyway, let's move to a happy story, and that's The Shallows, which was number 4, debuted in 4th place with 16 million, stronger than anybody had anticipated. And that's actually a bigger debut at the box office than Ryan Reynolds was able to have pre-Deadpool, post-Green Lantern in that span of time in his career. Buried came out during that time, but that was a limited release, so we can't really compare. Also, Buried wasn't as commercial as The Shallows. But Buried, the reason I bring it up is because not only is it a similar film about someone in one location being physically tested, but Blake Lively in her press for The Shallows said that she was inspired to do The Shallows because of her husband's advice, saying, it really pushed me as an actor. And I'm sure, that's what she said, but, that's what the reason she gave. But I'm sure off the record, he also said, it highlighted my skills as an actor. It gave me a little bit more credibility. It was a building block in getting me to where I needed to be for Deadpool. Now, I said that she was so good in the film. The people really liked the movie. It ended up settling around 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, but initially, out of the gate, it was in the 90s. So very well reviewed. I think the word of mouth on that's going to be great, and I think it's going to do even better for 4th of July. We might finally have a movie with legs this summer. I think Zootopia is the last movie we've seen with really, really strong legs. So I'd love to see The Shallows be the next one. But I thought she was so good in my review, I said that she should be the new Captain Marvel. I said I think she'd be a better choice than Brie Larson. And some people said, oh, she's a horrible actress. But I like the people that defended Blake Lively and said, hey, Ryan Reynolds was a horrible Green Lantern, and yet he was a great Deadpool. So I think Blake Lively, people should give her a chance. And if you don't agree, well, then I'm guessing you haven't seen The Shallows. So very strong. That movie only cost $17 million to make, strongly advertised in digital. I think it should actually be a moneymaker for Sony. So that's very exciting. Now, what's not exciting is The Free State of Jones. Matthew McConaughey's new film debuted in 5th place, but even though it's right behind The Shallows in the rankings, there's a significant dip in the earnings of the film. This came in with just $7.7 million. Matthew McConaughey has not been able to capitalize on his promise out of that really impressive, iconic year where he had not only Dallas Buyers Club, but True Detective, won the Oscar, won a bunch of awards. There was Interstellar with Christopher Nolan, but that really kind of was an underperformer for Nolan. And I think if you were to ask anyone what their favorite Christopher Nolan film is, I think, maybe someone down below will write it to be contrary, but for the most part, I don't think Interstellar would be it. So Matthew McConaughey, really hasn't been able to rebound. He made that Gus Van Sant movie with Ken Watanabe about that suicide forest in Asia. That didn't register either. This was supposed to be a big awards contender. Sometimes they release them in the summer to, get out ahead of the crowd. But I think this is not only DOA financially, but also as an awards contender, especially because we all know that the civil, I don't think that the Birth of a Nation takes place during the Civil War, but the slavery movie, it probably takes place sometime around then, but the slavery movie of the year, of course, is The Birth of a Nation. It has a better studio backing it, Fox Searchlight. They're awards experts. This is from Styx Entertainment. They have, not a lot of expertise in that or experience in that area. And then also the other one's going to be more authentic because it comes from black talent, Nate Parker. So Free State of Jones just really didn't have a chance. As for the rest of the top 10, everything dropped about 50%. The numbers, though, are what's really alarming, in that you have a significant drop-off after, the first two movies. You want to see a couple of more people, in the 20s and, in the double digits, I guess you could say. But you have the single digits coming in right at number 5. So, again, as I said, I would love to see The Shallows become a movie with legs and finally see some movies perform over time. I mean, I think it's not good for the business that you make your money right away and then you have to make room for the next movie. But, that's kind of the environment we're in right now. Warcraft, gotta mention Warcraft, dropped out of the top 10 to number 11, but worldwide has passed 400 million. That means it's 100 million away from breaking even. Some people are putting the number at 450, so it's only 50 million away. And for those of you who ask about this, I'd just like to reiterate, although I would like to thank everyone in the comments who helps out with this as well, because I can't go over it in every movie math episode, but the studio, it shakes out, they only get half of the money that comes in at the box office, because the other half ends up going to the theater. So whenever you see a box office total, only 50% goes to the studio. That's what they actually get back. And in China, sometimes less than that, because they cook the books over there. And then, of course, don't always just take the budget for what it needs to earn back, but don't forget the advertising number, which is often left out. And for a major blockbuster like Warcraft, it's usually around $100 million just to advertise it. All right, so also I want to talk about Now You See Me Too. Now, this actually was the only movie not to drop around 50%. In its third week, it dropped about 40%. So Lionsgate, there might be something there after all. They spend a lot of money on that movie. That movie cost about $100 million. And, they have high hopes. They've talked about when they make a Lionsgate theme park, maybe that it would be a ride. And China has given new hope to that and, helped Lionsgate quite a bit. And interestingly enough, this is the third film that Lionsgate has released this year, which did better in China opening weekend than it did here in the United States. Maybe they should open that theme park in China, although there's currently some theme park wars going on between Wanda Group, which owns AMC Theaters, interestingly enough, and the Disney company, which just opened their Shanghai theme park. If you haven't heard about that, Wanda just opened their own theme park, and they had Captain America and Snow White show up, of course, not officially. So bad! I don't know why they would do that. All right, they're very upset with Disney moving into their space. But in China, Now You See Me Too opened with 43.3 million. That's pretty much double what it opened with in the United States. That is amazing. It even beat out Independence Day Resurgence, which came in a little bit behind at 37.3. And now Independence Day Resurgence appealed to the Chinese market by having Angelababy, a model turned actress, have a small role as one of the fighter pilots. But Now You See Me Too outdid them, blatantly so, I think, which kind of hurt the film, as I said in my review, but it literally paid off in China, where, of course, they delivered such a strong opening. But John Chu not only directs, they have Jay Chow in a role, maybe there's a special cut for China where he has a little bit of a bigger role, but also a large part of the film, almost all of the film actually takes place in Macau, which is like the Las Vegas of China. All right, so anyway, let's move on to the specialty market. I think that the foreign market's so interesting, by the way, and it's making me watch more foreign movies, and I hope that you are as well. That's why I put The Mermaid as my top 10, my number 10 movie in my top 10 list of the year so far. But anyway, in the specialty market, The Neon Demon opened in 783 theaters, and it delivered an absolutely horrifying per theater average of $775. That's shocking. They couldn't even get into the $1,000 range, which, of course, a really strong film. Well, usually they open in just 4 or 5 theaters, but this should have been able to at least do something in the tens. So Nicholas Winding Refn, his career was looking really good after Drive. You know, he was teaming up with Ryan Gosling, and he never transitioned into the mainstream. For a while there, he was going to remake Logan's Run, and he was actually, he's on some fan sites today saying, I'd love to make a Batgirl movie. And it's like, no way is anyone going to give you Batgirl, Nicholas Winding Refn. Not only have you proven to be extremely difficult, he's talking smack at Cannes and other festivals, but now he doesn't even have a recent hit to his name. So he's not going to be able to get back into contention for a studio gig until he starts bringing up that per theater average and also, the perception of his movies. I think he's just gotten too weird, and weird does not always mean good. All right, so anyway, it's really interesting to see someone fall so much. And I guess Ryan Gosling should be glad that he distanced himself from the director. As for the upcoming weekend, this is the big 4th of July weekend, but it sure doesn't feel like it, right? I am surprised that no big other movie was like, you know what? There's space here, because there clearly is. At least now it's very evident. Steven Spielberg's The Big Friendly Giant is supposed to lead the pack with just $31 million. Oh, that's horrible. That's really bad. Also then Tarzan, The Legend of Tarzan. There are some people predicting that this could be like, a close finish with the BFG, but conservative estimates have it coming in the low 20s. That's not good for Margot Robbie. I've heard people say that The Legend of Tarzan doesn't have any star power, but hello, Margot Robbie is supposed to be a star at this point. A lot of people are certainly talking about her, so she should be able to deliver a little bit better than that. And then the Purge election year, surprisingly, is only supposed to deliver 21. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being a little bit stronger. That would make it the lowest opening yet for that franchise. The first one opened with 34, then 29.8, and then 21. I don't know if I would make any more after that. Although, let's see if the franchise does have anywhere to go. All right, that's today's Movie Math. Thanks for going over the box office with me. I look forward to continuing the discussion down below, and you can check out some more episodes right now.